Hi everyone, this is Ankhi-Krol coming to you from Ankhi-Krol Law, and today we have with us Shannon Hegum, who I met about 6 years ago in Portland, Oregon, while I was attending an expo, and I was a speaker there. And Shannon happened to be in the audience, and we just hit it off right away. And then after that, we became fast friends, and we also worked together. So Shannon, would you like to tell us a little bit more about what it is that you do?
Absolutely, Sharina. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much. So I live in Havre, Montana, which is in the middle of nowhere. Actually, I think you can see the middle of nowhere from here. I was born and raised here in Havre. We're about 40 miles from the Canadian border, way up at the top of the state, right about in the middle. And so this little tiny rural Montana town. And in this tiny rural Montana town, I operate Luxury Unleashed, which is a luxury pet boarding facility, which is a very odd thing to do in rural Montana, but I'm lucky to have found that demographic. And that led me to a career having a consulting firm where I help other people with luxury pet resorts. And so this is an interesting time to be in business like everyone else. But being out here in Montana, we're a little bit more isolated from what's going on, but it is definitely on its way. And so I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you today about how it's affecting us out here in our little tiny town.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get into, how the current situation with COVID is affecting you, I just want to mention to our viewers that Shannon was actually on TV. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about your celebrity spotlight?
Oh, goodness. Well, yes, I had an amazing opportunity in 2012. I received a phone call from a production company filming Hotel Hell with Gordon Ramsay. And they asked me if I would be willing to redo a facility for one of their episodes that was located on a property that they were redoing in Vermont. And so it was an amazing experience. It was sort of shocking to realize apparently Mr. Ramsey had found my website on his own and done a bunch of research and told them that he wanted to work with me, which he's always been my hero. So that was an amazing experience to go out and be able to do that. And so I had a few days to redo a facility from photos. I was not on site when the redo was planned, executed, or anything. So it was definitely an adventure, and I'm very thankful for the experience. It was awesome working with him, and everyone asks me, does he really curse that much? And he really doesn't in real life. But it was an incredible experience for a little girl from Montana. So I'm very thankful.
Well, the spaces that you create, I mean, I would want to live there. I mean, I would just, I would just hold your dogs and just live there myself, if you
Well,
would.
that's interesting because getting started, everyone asked me, how did you do this when you live in Montana, when you're so isolated from everything? And interestingly enough, when I opened my facility, I opened my first facility back in 1992, and I opened it having no idea what a pet resort or a boarding facility was like. In those days, that was before Animal Planet. We had magazines and books to look through, but there was no internet. We didn't have a chance to see other people's facilities. And so I designed my pet boarding facility like a home where I would want my pets to be boarded. And I think it was 5 years that I was in business before I actually went through another boarding kennel. And I was just shocked to see what that meant for other people, because my facility was so different. That was really an edge that I didn't realize at the time. And so that sparked really the interest in me helping other people to design facilities that were very unique and different, because the whole luxury pet care was a very foreign idea back then. So it's been interesting since then to watch that take off. And I've designed and redesigned facilities on 4 continents, and have just been very blessed to have an amazing career helping other people to design places and spaces for really pampered pets to exist and thrive while people are on vacation. And again, watching that whole part of the pet industry develop has been incredible. So I'm very thankful to be involved I get to see the best of the best, and also finding out that there is a market for that in a little tiny rural town in Montana has been an interesting adventure, because if I can make that work and thrive here, then we can take that business model really anywhere.
Mhm.
So it's been a beautiful journey for sure.
Great. So for those of us who are in big cities, New York, Chicago, New Jersey, wherever it may be, explain to us what you mean by rural, because what you're saying may be completely, I bet it is completely different from my idea of rural, because for
Yes,
me, a house, wi- I guess surrounding a little field, a little backyard is pretty rural, right? So
right.
explain to us your setting.
Sure,
Like how
absolutely.
close is your closest neighbor?
Well, so I'm in the middle of town, so it's like any other town. We have
Hmm.
houses next door. I'm
Okay.
lucky to have a large piece of property right in the middle of town. So I have about an acre,
Hmm.
which is large for even for our little town. So it's like any other, we have the residential district houses and tree-lined streets and all of that. Montana is the largest landlocked state in the US. And so we have, I think, 1,030,000 people in the entire state. We actually have more cows than people.
Oh, I didn't know
So
that.
yeah, that's a true story. So that translates to about 6 people per square mile in our entire state.
Oh,
And
wow.
so we are very rural. We do have large cities. Cities in our context of city, our largest city or town, as you would probably refer to it, is Billings, which is, I think they have 100,000 people there, and that's our largest city. So it's a much different setting. Where I am, our closest international airport is 100 miles away, and
Wow.
between where I'm located and that airport, there I think are 2 gas stations, maybe. So, in the wintertime, we have extreme, extreme temperatures here. 40 below is not uncommon at all. And so, you plan ahead, you learn to plan ahead. I think that's one of the things about the people that live in my state. We're very self-sufficient because we've been forced to be. So again, we have, we have it all. I'm a little bit biased because I'm very thankful to be from Montana, especially right now. But we have, the beautiful plains, the open big sky country. We have the Rocky Mountains, beautiful glacier park. We have a little bit of everything here, and not a lot of people. And I think all of us that live here are very thankful for what we are surrounded by.
Okay, that's great. I know you mentioned that I should come and visit, and I would love to at some point.
Yes.
Once all of this is over, maybe I should take a trip to visit you, and you can show me around.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would love to come. I really haven't ever been to your location, so I would love to come and see what that's all about. And
Yeah.
I think this is actually a good segue into my next question for you. So with the coronavirus going on, we and those of us that are living in big cities, we have completely changed our lifestyle. We can't go out. We've been quarantined. I've been quarantined for over a month and a half. At this
Mhm.
point, yes, exactly a month and a half, because it was March 15th was the last day I was allowed to be out. So
Right.
our lives have completely changed. But from what you're saying, it sounds like you guys would always have to be more prepared to be isolated, right? To more prepared to have everything that you need in your house already. Unlike those of us that are in big cities or big city areas, surrounding areas, we don't always have everything that we need stocked in the house. Tell me how that has affected you, you or friends that you know nearby, or
Right.
has it affected you at all?
Well, I think I have a different perspective personally, just because I have traveled extensively and have friends all over the world. And so for us, for my husband and me, we could see this coming. And I am Sally Safety. I always want to be prepared. And so, we could kind of see what was happening. And so we entered quarantine on March 16th as
Okay,
well.
same day.
Both of us, yeah. And we are both high risk. And so for us, it was an easy decision. My husband left his job as a pharmacist, stepped away, like immediately when we started having cases. I think we have 451 cases now in the state. But when it's, you could just feel it sort of creeping closer and closer to us. We watch the news, we read the news, see what's happening. But so many people here did not take that seriously because of the sense of isolation, not accounting for the fact that there are people traveling constantly, and, interstate and global travel is going on. And so we have all these people coming in and out. And I think it's easier for everyone to pretend that it's not real. I think that's a coping mechanism. No one wants to be afraid. And so if we act like, well, it's never going to hit here because we're out here in Montana, we don't have that many people. And that, of course, is not reasonable. So I think for people here, you have people that are prepared, that have been taking it seriously. I mean, we have the same as anywhere. There are those people that think it's a big conspiracy theory. People that, we're Montanans, we're pretty tough and we're pretty rebellious. So it's kind of like, well, you're not going to tell me what to do. When we did have a shelter in place put in by our governor a few weeks ago, and it was interesting to watch what transpired after that. It was not, it wasn't like that we got up the next day and you could tell that there was a shelter in place. It was business as usual. Restaurants started doing things differently, and you could see a gradual shift. But I think that there's still here a sense of denial that it's not going to impact our community. We have had one case in our county. I think in the state of Montana to date, we've had only 16 deaths, which is horrific. And that number is going to increase, of course. Our governor lifted the shelter in place. We're in phase 1 of reopening starting on Monday. So businesses are opening back up. And what I have seen personally is there's a sense of, well, the governor said it's okay, so now the virus is gone and everything is all right. And sadly, I'm guessing there's going to be another spike in cases, and it's a very difficult thing. We can't control other people. And here, I think Montanans are pretty difficult to control anyway, because again, we've been taught and learned to be self-sufficient out of necessity. And so, having the governor say, well, you have to close your business down, you have to shelter in place, that's very difficult for some people. Now, I have a luxury pet resort here, of course, and we have a play care program every week where dogs come and play and we interact with them. We, meaning my husband and me, we don't have employees, but we made the decision on the 8th of March to shut that down. So long before the shelter in place was issued, before anything was put into place. And that was a measure to keep not only ourselves safe, but our customers as well. And so it's been interesting seeing the people that have refused to close their businesses down, or restaurants that have continued to stay open, not respecting the social distancing. They've got their X's on the floor, and they've got a 100 square foot lobby, a little tiny lobby with 15 people still lodged in the lobby waiting for their orders. And so it's been really difficult to step back. And, I think each of us needs to remind ourselves that we can only control the acreage around our person, right? We can't control other people now. And as scary as it is, we have to do what's best for ourselves and for our families. And it's just a very difficult time, obviously, for everyone.
Thank you, Shannon. And actually, what you mentioned is so important. I started this mini series of, interviewing entrepreneurs who have been affected by COVID because of some Facebook posts I was seeing from people from, from the West Coast or from, the Midwest, who were literally writing on their Facebook posts, "This must be a hoax. Do you personally know anyone that has been affected?" And my jaw just dropped when I was reading not one, not two, but multiple status updates like that. So I thought, for my first interview, I would actually interview one of my clients who is a doctor treating COVID patients in Connecticut. So he actually took his time out during his short break to come and speak to me. And that was my first interview for this series. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because in that interview itself, I mentioned to my client, Dr. Espana, if people who are living in rural areas, if they should let their guards down because they have that isolation protecting them, right? But like you said, there is still travel happening. Just because you're not moving doesn't mean others aren't moving around you. You get
Right.
mail, if nothing else, you get delivery. All these things are done by people. So those, viruses can easily come to you even if you're not moving yourself. So I'm really
Right.
glad to hear that, you have been taking it seriously and you shut down your business even before the order to stay at home.
Right.
So, that's really proactive, and I, thank you for doing that. But like you said, even around here where it's, pandemic central, um, some people just really want to stay open. And, we drove by the other day when we were going to the grocery store and saw, a roadside stall selling statues for the garden, which was really strange because you would think that police would already shut them down, but they hadn't yet. So things like that. It's not just even in Montana, even people around here, they're just hoping to make money. And I really can't blame them either, because everyone needs money to survive.
Right.
And it's become really hard for a lot of us, to get any sort of financial help, especially small business owners who seem to be left to the side
Right.
by the government, because self-employed people are not getting that unemployment benefit, right? So it's really
Right.
tough. So I don't mean to say anyone's doing anything wrong. It's out of necessity, I understand that, but it is not that safe. um,
Right.
so what I wanted to ask you is that, if you can explain to us how your business would be operating on a normal day before the pandemic, so we can kind of make contrast of what's happening now.
Sure. Well, as I mentioned, we do have the play care program, which is a weekly, 1 day a week, all the dogs come to play. So um, those are my favorite days, and we have 20 dogs roaming around, and we play with them outside. We rotate them in and out, work on different behavioral issues. It's my particular business model has been set up, not only the boarding but also the play care, to a self drop off and pickup situation. So all of my registration is already online. All of the payment is online. So I have a very hands-off approach to it because I have chosen not to have employees. That's been a purposeful decision. Years past, I operated a grooming school for 15 years. I had a staff of 15 people at one point. I've sort of been there, done that, and that's not something that I just want to do at this particular stage in my life. And so I have structured my business to be hands-off. And so deciding to shut down at that particular point, I could still have stayed open and been operational through the shutdown, through the shelter in place as well, because here in Montana, the governor chose, because of our livestock and everything else, to make pet services and veterinary and all of that essential. And so I would not have been forced to shut down at all and could have stayed open. Now, of course, the other half of my business is boarding. So we take care of pets when people are traveling, working. So we do have a lot of essential workers that are working that need a place for their pets. And I had to step in and say, I'm sorry, I can't do that. And that's a difficult thing. I'm lucky to work with the other facility in town and say, hey, I'm going to send people over. And she did stay open for a period of time. But it was a difficult decision because you're letting people down. But on the other hand, I feel personally a sense of urgency to flatten that curve here, just like everyone else. Though we are isolated, it's still so very important that we all contribute. And so to shut the business down was an easy decision for me. Being a consultant all of these years, part of that, me helping other people to plan their businesses and operate their businesses effectively, is being prepared for things, being prepared for the unknown. None of us could have prepared for this. And we've always said that the pet industry is pretty bulletproof. We've been shown otherwise. But I think, being prepared, not overextending, all of those things now for the facilities that have made good financial decisions, it's not quite as tragic. But it's a right now, of course, every day it's changing, the knowledge is changing, the research is changing, different things about this virus are coming to light. And the most recent alarming thing for those of us in the pet industry is that now they're finding the virus in companion pets. So they found it in cats. Now they've found it in a dog here in the US. So, there is reverse zoonosis going on. We are able to give the virus to our pets. Now the question remains is this virus zoonotic? In other words, can we catch it from our pets? And so, before that discovery, we have talked about, should we open back up? Should we be available and continue with the hands-off, drop-off, and pick-up? I mean, I don't have to see any human beings in order to take care of dogs. But now we've opened up this whole other question as to, okay, well, where has your dog been? Now we need to contact trace where your dog has been. Has it been exposed to someone else? Have you been out of town with it? Can that dog then transmit the virus to a human? And so for those of us in the pet industry, that's going to become a real key factor until we have some of these questions answered. And I guess for me, overall, that's the real, I think that's the real lesson in this. There's the dichotomy of, we have the health crisis part of it and the grief and the people that are struggling with the illness and all of that. And the other side of that is the economic impact of that. And the truth is, none of us really know much right now. And we are a society that is used to having, instant access to all of the knowledge. I mean, goodness, we can almost be a doctor if we can Google our symptoms, right? So we're used to having access to all of the information, and all of a sudden, Google doesn't know. There's no way to know. And for me personally, my personal belief is that everything happens for a reason, good, bad, and otherwise. That's just my personal take on things. And so for me, I think the lesson seems to be finding a peace in not knowing. And for this type A control freak OCD personality, that's a struggle.
Right.
So, but I think that's, none of us know. We are probably not going to know for a while. We're going to emerge into a much different world. And trying to sit back on either side of this issue, the health side of the issue, as well as the economic side of the issue, and try to predict what's going to happen, I think is a wasted effort at this point. For me, I think the lesson seems to be right now is to find peace again in that little acreage around your person. How can you contribute to the good of everyone else? How can you help, by staying home, by trying to flatten the curve, by, contributing any way that you can, because we have lost control. The world, not just our nation, but the world has lost control, and we don't have those answers. And when will we have the answers? For me, when is it reasonable to reopen? I have no idea. It has to be when there is an acceptable treatment or a vaccine, because we are both high risk. And, every day that situation is going to change. Every day the information is changing. People are learning and doing research every day, trying to figure this out. There's a plethora of people struggling and working and grinding every day to get these answers. But until then, letting go of that control and trying to find some peace in this is a huge challenge, I know, for me and for people that I know. But we really don't have much of a choice. So trying to figure out economically what's going to happen, because all of my clients, my consulting clients, are like, what do I do?
Right.
We can't have curbside service. We can't do those sorts of things. We really can't operate without having contact with the dogs. We can do it without having contact with people, or many of us are able to. But is that safe right now? It's going to be a while before we know. So coming out of this on the other side, as with anything, there are going to be new opportunities, new businesses, and maybe I'm just the eternal optimist, but I do think that we will come out into a better world. I do think that there will be opportunities that we never dreamed of. Just like we were blindsided by this, or the effect of this, the real deep effect of this to each of us personally. I don't think any of us really dreamed that this was possible. We had those people out there saying there's going to be a pandemic or it's a possibility. Did we think that would happen? No, we were pretty naive. I know I was. The other side of that then is we also don't know what the opportunities are going to be on the other side. And that's something to look forward to, something to be hopeful about, because I think at this point, trying to plan, I think it's a moot point. I don't think there is, none of us know, none of us have that crystal ball. And that's difficult, as I said, especially not only for me personally, but then as, for my clients, how do I prepare them for what's ahead? I can't, none of us can. So
and it's, thank you so much for going into that. Those were actually going to be various questions I was going to ask, but you read my mind and you answered them even before I had a chance to ask. But I want to go back to something you mentioned that was very important. You said your mayor is opening up the town that you live in. So I wanted to go back to that. Same thing is going to be happening here. They're just debating on when things are going to open. I know in New Jersey, they're opening up the parks this weekend, which means there's going to be a surge of people just like crowding the parks. And as you have said, there's this notion in people's minds that just because this ban is lifted, now the virus must be either weak or it's gone. I would encourage everyone to just use your own, I guess, mind and realize that just because things are being opened doesn't mean this virus magically disappeared. I would still maintain, a more isolated lifestyle as long as I can, until I can see that there are vaccines out there or something more of a protection than there is now, which is nothing. Right now, these masks aren't going to do anything really. If you're not being careful, it's not going to do anything. So one last question I wanted to ask you is, once this is all over, I know you have just described, you have just explained that we can't guess what's coming. And I totally agree with that. I don't know how my law practice is going to change. Already changing to a point where I don't even know what is going to happen next, just like any other industry, any other business. But what do you think is going to happen, in your opinion, to the pet industry? Do you foresee a change coming in the pet industry, or do you think it'll pretty much remain the same?
I don't think anything that we know will be the same ever again. But there's a beauty in that, for sure. I think if you choose to see it, I think that, right now people are spending more time with their pets. They are adopting more shelter pets. That's been rewarding to see that change coming about from this horrific experience, that we're deepening that connection that we have with our pets. How do we come out of this on the other side? What's going to happen? I don't foresee. There's always this fear, when the announcement came out that they had found it in the dogs in Hong Kong, I believe it was, and everyone, there was this mass, people were dumping their pets, wanting to have them euthanized in different countries. And there's always a fear that people are not going to take all of the information in context, and that could have a catastrophic effect for the pets being euthanized. That's, I suppose, my primary fear as far as how that affects our industry, because it's unfounded at this point, and that would be horrific. How will we come out of this? Will there be a pet industry? I can't imagine that there would not be a pet industry. They are a part of our lives. They are now, I think, an even more integral part of our lives. And that's the one thing that I've shared with my clients is, listen, this could have, I think it's going to take different directions. I think as I said, different opportunities are going to open up. I don't think that we're ever going to be a society where pets are not a huge part of that. And I think now that we've been forced to stay at home, you know, there are all these things on Facebook about, what our pets, that they're judging us and why are you still home? And, the dogs are thrilled that you're home and the cats just think you're a loser. And, that's true. I mean, we're there with our pets every day. And I think that's changing each of our relationships with our companion animals. So I think on the other side, I do think it's going to be better and greater and richer, a richer environment than it is even now. The question is how many people can survive. And I do a lot of work with people in the grooming industry. And, a lot of those people do not have financial stability for whatever reason. It's difficult. It's a very blue collar industry and it's very difficult to operate a business. It's the grooming business. The grooming industry is exhausting. And these people are working, 18 hours a day, and they were working like that before the pandemic. And so how do we, when we reopen that to the public, that's going to be difficult. How many of those people will have survived? Will they still have their shops leased? Can they hang on financially? Boarding kennels, I don't know. Their kennels are empty. We're not traveling now. And in talking to my different clients in different countries, I had a great conversation with one of my clients in Australia recently. And she said, I don't think people here will travel when they open back up. She said, I think people are going to be, there's not going to be the money to travel. They will be entering a big recession in their country. And I thought a lot about that as far as what will we do here? I know here in Montana, we're used to traveling. We have to travel for everything. I mean, we didn't have a Walmart in my town until 2006. Think about that. So we're used to traveling and going. We're half an hour from Canada. We're used to that movement. And so for my particular facility, I think my state, I think people are going to want to travel. And so it's those businesses that can weather the storm that will be out, and able to open up on the other side. This is going to level the playing field for small business across the world. Because if you haven't, been prepared financially, if you've overextended, even if you haven't, I mean, we don't know. We're a couple of months into this, depending upon how long this lasts. As I said, we're going to come out into a completely different world, and how many of those people can survive? But again, perhaps that's the lesson. Are you doing something that you really love? Is this really what you want to do? I know for me personally, I've thought a lot about, is this what I want to be when I grow up? I've always loved my job, and I'm thankful to have had a wonderful career, a very rewarding career. Should I go back to school? Are there different opportunities for me? I'm where I want to be. But I think each of us that own a small business can ask ourselves that question. I don't know how many people are really thrilled and really feel like they are living their dream job. And this is an opportunity to say, hey, maybe this isn't maybe I don't want to own a pastry shop. Maybe what I really want to do is, I want to be a veterinarian, or I want to do something different. And I think that's, again, an opportunity. We have to look for those. We have to look under all the rocks and under all the, through all of the debris of the fallout of this horrible situation, and really do some soul searching and say, listen, is this where I want to be? And this, the greatest gift that this pandemic has given each of us is time. And, what have we always said for years and years? I don't have enough time. Right. I'm rushed. I don't have time to do this. Well, guess what? Now you do have time. So perhaps this is an opportunity for a lot of those small business owners to reinvent. So,
yeah, and I think even if you're not a business owner, if you're an employee, especially I feel like if you're an employee of someone else, now is the time for you to really think about if you want to take that leap of faith and start your own business, because then you have more of a say on how you spend your life and how you spend your time and who you spend it with. So I think coming out of this, Shannon, I agree with you. Things are definitely going to change, and I do hope for the good of everyone that there is a boost in the economy, because everyone is feeling it. It's from top to bottom, and whoever thought that they were not going to be affected by this, is good luck to them. I really don't see how you're going to survive this without being impacted. So, I want to end this on a good note. Is there any word of advice you have for those of us who are looking to open a pet business once this whole thing is over?
Absolutely. Well, I'm again a little bit biased because I think it's the best industry ever. And I think, part of what makes our industry so rewarding is that you have the dichotomy of the relationships with the pet owners, which you form more of a friendship, I think, in this business, in this industry versus other industries, because there's such a basis of trust. If there's that foundation of trust, they are entrusting you with their precious little babies who are completely helpless. And so there's that part of the relationship in this industry. And then you have, of course, the pets. And that is the best part. That's why everyone, I think, says, who's in this industry, I've always known this is what I wanted to do. Coming through this pandemic, again, that time at home with your pets, I think we are going to see a lot of people that say, hey, maybe this is what I want to do. Maybe I want to become a groomer. Maybe I want to have a boarding kennel or be a dog trainer or whatever. And I would say, go after it with everything you have. You have the opportunity right now to start working on your education and working toward that. There are all of the associations within the industry, and any of your viewers who are interested are welcome to reach out to me. I would love to help anyone on their journey. I would be happy to donate my time to help them, connect them with the right people for whatever part of the industry that they would like to become involved in. It's such a rewarding job, again, because not only do we have the best pets and the best opportunity to interact with other people's pets. I mean, I feel like I have hundreds of pets that I don't have to feed that are like my own. I love them like my own. But then there are also those relationships with the people that I treasure. And, that I think is the key, that we have the opportunity to connect with our communities in a much different way. And I think that's the beauty of the pet industry. So if you have viewers out there that are thinking that that might be something that they're interested in, I would love to bridge that gap for anyone. Because I think it's the best job in the world, for sure.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Shannon. And I just want to add at the very end, now that we've reached the end, that Shannon and we actually met at a pet industry conference. And as you may know, I work with the pet industry. It's one of my niche practices, and it's something that I absolutely love working on and working with. The people that I've met through the pet industry have been phenomenal. They're just kind-hearted and very warm and loving. And if you're looking for a warm and loving sort of environment, this is it. The pet industry is where you need to be. So if you have any questions regarding how you can start your pet business, or how you can protect your brand, your name, your logo, feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to speak to you about that. And you can also, of course, reach out to Shannon, and she'll be more than happy to give you whatever information you need to get to the next step. So thanks so much, Shannon, and thank you everyone for listening.
Thanks, Sharina. Stay safe.
Thank you.